On the morning, the serene ambiance of a resort town's beach was shattered by a chilling discovery. Strolling along the shore, passers-by stumbled upon a deeply unsettling scene: the half-naked body of a young woman lying motionless, her form partially submerged in the water. Authorities arrived promptly after being notified, and it wasn't long before the victim was identified as Scarlet Keeling, a British woman who had been vacationing in the area. The sight of her lifeless body was harrowing, but the deeper story unfolded as investigations began. Scarlet's body bore unmistakable signs of violence. Bruises were visible across her skin. An autopsy and toxicological examination were quickly conducted to uncover the events leading to her death. The findings were deeply disturbing. Scarlet's blood contained traces of alcohol and several prohibited substances. Additionally, her body displayed over 50 injuries, ranging from severe bruises to deep cuts, each suggesting a prolonged and violent murder. This horrifying discovery marked the beginning of a complex and heart-wrenching investigation, one that would leave a lasting impact on the community and beyond. This true crime documentary will focus on a girl named Scarlet Keeling. Born in July 1992 in Great Britain, the third child in a sprawling and unconventional family. Her mother, Fiona, was a complex woman with a tangled web of relationships, giving birth to 9 children from 5 different men. However, none of these fathers ever played a meaningful or lasting role in the lives of their children. The family was held together by Fiona's sheer determination, although their existence was precarious and largely dependent on government benefits supplemented by the sporadic odd jobs Fiona managed to do. The family resided in a troubled area of Devon in the United Kingdom, a region marked by its socio-economic challenges. Their living conditions were far from ideal. Fiona managed to secure a modest house on a small plot of land, but the cramped quarters forced the family to make use of several trailers to accommodate everyone. Despite the challenges, Fiona's resilience kept the family afloat. The children, most of whom were homeschooled, grew up in this environment, surrounded by the harsh realities of their circumstances. Fiona's first child was a boy named Harrowing, born during her early years of independence. 2 years later, Silas came into the world, followed by Scarlet, born 2 years after him. These 3 siblings shared the same father, Richard Keeling, a man of Libyan descent who worked in construction. Richard and Fiona's relationship began when they lived near each other in Hertfordshire, but their connection was fraught with instability. Shortly after Scarlet's birth, the couple's relationship unraveled, leaving Fiona to care for the children alone. In the following years, Fiona had 2 daughters, Marilyn and Kiss, born just over a year apart. Their father, Chris Osborne, was involved in trade when the girls were born. However, like her previous relationship, this one also fell apart, leaving Fiona as the sole caregiver. Fiona's life took another turn when she met Paul, a market trader she encountered while selling army surplus gear in London. Paul, who sold ceramics, fathered 2 more of Fiona's children, Isaac and Kate. Their brief relationship brought the family to Devon, where Fiona sought to provide her growing brood with more space. Unfortunately, the relationship was tumultuous, marked by frequent disagreements and conflicts. The couple's shared living arrangement deteriorated, ultimately leading to eviction and the end of their union. Despite her struggles, Fiona's determination did not waver. She went on to have 2 more children, Trinity and Aurora, with Adam Foster, a contractor specializing in floor installations. This relationship, too, was short-lived, leaving Fiona once again to navigate life as a single mother. By this point, the family was squeezed into a small apartment provided by the state. Fiona's efforts to homeschool her children continued, though they occasionally attended public schools when circumstances allowed. Remarkably, the Fiona children were known for their polite demeanor, tidy appearances, and evident abilities, qualities that belied the chaos of their upbringing. As time passed, the children grew older, and the challenges Fiona faced became increasingly pronounced. Supporting 9 children alone was a difficult task, one that Fiona often struggled to manage. Despite her best efforts, she was occasionally caught consuming alcohol and even dabbling in prohibited substances. Though Fiona did her utmost to shield her children from such influences, the environment in which they lived was fraught with danger. The family's marginal neighborhood was rife with prohibited substances abuse, setting a troubling example for the children. Our main heroine of this story, Scarlet, the third child, grew up as a vibrant and curious girl, but she was not immune to the temptations of her surroundings. By the age of 14, she had begun exploring the forbidden aspects of life, smoking occasionally and frequenting raves where she mingled with dubious company. According to her mother, Scarlet was mature beyond her years, looking and acting older than her age. Her beauty and vivacious personality attracted attention, and she began dating boys at a young age. Despite these challenges, Scarlet was described by those who knew her as a cheerful and active girl. She had a passion for swimming and horses and dreamed of joining an artistic troupe to pursue a creative career. Her charm and ambition shone brightly, even against the backdrop of her difficult upbringing. In 2006, a man named Rob Clark entered Fiona's life, marking a significant shift from her previous relationships. Rob was wealthier and more established than Fiona's former partners, and his presence brought a sense of stability that Fiona had rarely experienced. By 2007, the couple began making ambitious plans. They decided to embark on a life-changing trip with Fiona's children, choosing India as their destination. Their intention was to visit the renowned resort area of Goa and extend their stay to about 6 months to fully immerse themselves in the country's culture and landscape. The decision to travel to Goa wasn't random. Rob had visited the region multiple times and had fallen in love with its vibrant atmosphere. For Fiona, however, the proposal came as a complete surprise. Having never left Britain before, the idea of such an extensive journey was both thrilling and intimidating. Fiona hesitated for a long time, weighed down by concerns about the trip's logistics. The most pressing issue was the financial burden. Feeding and accommodating 8 children and 2 adults for half a year would require a significant amount of money. Additionally, Fiona's eldest son, Harrowing, was unable to join them due to issues with his documents. Fiona was determined not to rely entirely on Rob's wealth and resolved to contribute her share. To fund the trip, she tapped into her savings, sold some personal belongings, and even allocated part of her allowance to cover expenses. After months of preparation, the family was finally ready to embark on their adventure. Packing for such a large group was a monumental task, and every member of the family was buzzing with excitement. The trip began in late November 2007, as Rob, Fiona, and her 8 children set off for their first destination, Anjuna in Goa. This coastal town, famous for its idyllic beaches and laid-back vibe, was the perfect introduction to India. Known for its ties to hippie culture, Anjuna exuded an informal and carefree atmosphere. The vibrant parties and lively clubs offered plenty of entertainment, while the warm weather and stunning ocean views immediately captivated the British tourists. Initially, the Keeling family embraced the vibrant energy of Anjuna. They basked in the sunshine, enjoyed the ocean, and the break from their routine lives in Britain. However, by February 2008, the constant hustle and bustle began to wear on the family. The endless parties and crowds lost their charm, and Fiona and Rob decided it was time to explore other parts of India. The children agreed with the plan, all except Scarlet. During her time in Anjuna, Scarlet had formed a close bond with a local guide named Julio Lobo. Julio organized excursions for tourists, handed out flyers to promote his business, and had taken Scarlet under his wing as an assistant guide. Scarlet was captivated by this new experience and even expressed a desire to stay behind to continue working with Julio and enjoying life on the beach. Fiona was initially opposed to the idea. The prospect of leaving her 16-year-old daughter in a foreign country, unsupervised and with someone they barely knew, seemed unthinkable. The risks were glaring. India consistently ranks among the most dangerous countries for women, with high rates of crime, particularly against young women. Fiona's maternal instincts screamed against such a decision, painting vivid pictures of potential dangers that could befall Scarlet in this unfamiliar environment. Despite these overwhelming concerns, Scarlet proved to be exceptionally persuasive. She emphasized the unique opportunity to gain independence, earn money, and experience a new culture, a dream she described as being too good to pass up. Fiona's kind and indulgent nature often made her susceptible to her children's pleas. Scarlet knew this well and carefully pressed all the right buttons to coax her mother into agreement. She painted a picture of responsibility, promising to avoid excessive partying and to never venture out alone at night. She portrayed Julio as a trustworthy companion, one who would look out for her well-being. Reluctantly and against her better judgment, Fiona gave in, granting Scarlet permission to stay behind with Julio under strict conditions. With this arrangement in place, Fiona, Rob, and the 7 remaining children resumed their tour of India. The journey was intended to be an unforgettable exploration, filled with joy and discovery. However, by early February 2008, Tragedy struck, casting a dark shadow over their adventure. Back in the UK, Fiona's eldest son, Harrowing, was hit by a car while crossing a pedestrian walkway. The 18-year-old suffered severe injuries, leaving him in critical condition. He was rushed to the hospital, but the doctor's updates were grim. Fiona, overwhelmed by worry and grief, made the heart-wrenching decision to cut the family's trip short and return home to support her son. When Fiona informed Scarlet about the situation, the young woman's carefree facade gave way to concern. She agreed to rejoin her family and began packing her belongings. On February 17, Fiona spoke with Scarlet to finalize plans for their imminent departure. Scarlet, however, had other priorities. A Valentine's Day party had captured her attention, and she was eager to attend. For Scarlet, it was the perfect opportunity to bid farewell to the vibrant social life she had come to cherish in Goa. Her enthusiasm for the event was infectious, but Fiona's initial response was one of hesitation and unease. The idea of her daughter attending a late-night party, especially in a foreign country, filled her with dread. Scarlet, as always, knew how to persuade her mother. She assured Fiona that she would return by midnight and that this party was a final chance to say goodbye to her friends. Reluctantly, Fiona agreed, though a sense of unease lingered. That evening, Scarlet set off for the party with Julio, whose presence had become a significant part of her life in Goa. Scarlet's time in the coastal town had been a whirlwind of work and leisure. By day, she distributed flyers for Julio, sometimes accompanying him as a guide for tourists. She also took on odd jobs, such as serving food or assisting on the beach. But it was the nights that truly defined her experience. Scarlet immersed herself in the vibrant party scene, transforming her modest earnings into opportunities for fun and freedom. Despite her youth, she had grown accustomed to this high-energy lifestyle, spending her nights at lively bars and returning late to Julio's aunt's house, where he stayed. This rhythm suited her, and she showed little interest in leaving it behind. However, the news of her elder brother's condition cast a shadow over her carefree existence. Scarlet's resolve to return with her family to the UK was clear, but before bidding farewell to the life she had come to love, she decided to make the most of one last memorable night. That evening, Julio, feeling unwell and exhausted, chose to stay home. This left Scarlet free to make plans with Julio's 17-year-old sister, Ruby. The two girls decided to spend their final night together exploring the local nightlife. As they prepared for their outing, Scarlet confided in Ruby, revealing a shocking detail. She had been in a romantic relationship with Julio. She mentioned that Julio, 10 years her senior, had even bought her a motorcycle, a gesture that underscored the depth of their bond. For Ruby, this revelation was both surprising and troubling. The two women embarked on their adventure, starting at a local bar before moving on to several other establishments. At each venue, they drank, but they maintained moderation, savoring the lively atmosphere without losing control. As midnight approached, Scarlet reiterated her intention to return to her family that night, as they were already expecting her. Despite the lingering warmth of the evening and the joy they had shared, around 1 a.m., the women shared a heartfelt goodbye, promising to stay in touch. Their promise to stay in touch was sincere, a bond forged by shared memories and mutual affection. Scarlet assured Ruby that she planned to return to the UK but hoped to visit the resort and reconnect with her friends in the future. This hopeful promise was the last Ruby would hear from Scarlet. Tragically, those tender moments marked the final time anyone saw her. When Scarlet did not return to the house where her family was staying, her mother, Fiona, initially assumed she had gone to Julio's place, a friend Scarlet had mentioned, and would likely return in the morning. However, as the first light of dawn seeped through the horizon, there was still no sign of Scarlet. Fiona's initial worry transformed into a gnawing dread. By the time the sun fully rose, an unsettling sense of foreboding gripped her. On the morning of February 18, 2008, the tranquil beauty of the resort town's beach was shattered by a horrifying discovery. Passers-by stumbled upon the half-naked body of a young woman lying on the shore, her lifeless form partially submerged in the water. The scene was grim, the silence heavy with the tragedy. Authorities were summoned immediately, and the victim was soon identified as 16-year-old Scarlet Keeling. Fiona, already burdened by her son's dire condition, was devastated by the news. Consumed by horror and disbelief, Fiona fought to gather her composure before rushing to the site of the tragedy. The initial police investigation was swift but deeply flawed. Police claimed that Scarlet had drowned accidentally. According to their narrative, she had consumed alcohol, fallen asleep on the beach, and been swept away by the waves. This explanation, however, was riddled with inconsistencies and ignored glaring evidence to the contrary. Scarlet's body bore multiple bruises, clear signs of violence that could not be easily dismissed. The severe injuries to her genital area hinted at an unthinkable crime. Yet the authorities brushed them aside. Her state of partial undress was attributed to the waves tearing away her clothing, a claim that Fiona found both dismissive and implausible. Fueled by maternal instinct and an unyielding determination to seek justice, Fiona refused to accept the police's superficial investigation. She was convinced that their conclusions were not only premature, but also deliberately designed to cover up the truth. Her suspicions were bolstered by the palpable reluctance of local authorities to delve deeper, seemingly prioritizing the reputation of the resort town over justice for Scarlet. Any negative publicity, they feared, could deter tourists and harm the region's lucrative tourism industry. Fiona's battle for justice was both grueling and relentless. She braved countless emotional and physical challenges, returning repeatedly to the morgue where Scarlet's body was kept. Each visit was an ordeal, yet Fiona persevered, documenting her daughter's injuries with photographs that served as stark evidence of a violent death. The bruises on Scarlet's body, particularly the grievous injuries to her genital area, left Fiona with no doubt that her daughter had been brutally assaulted. The police initially claimed that the bruises on Scarlet's head were the result of her hitting sharp stones at the bottom of the ocean. Frustrated by the lack of urgency and credibility in the investigation, Fiona decided to take matters into her own hands. She began her own painstaking inquiry, determined to uncover the truth and hold those responsible accountable. Fiona's self-led investigation was both exhaustive and courageous. She spoke directly with several witnesses, piecing together fragments of information about Scarlet's last known moments. Her determination led her to comb the area where Scarlet's body had been discovered, meticulously searching for clues that the police had overlooked. In an extraordinary turn of events, Fiona found crucial items that had been missed by the investigators. Scattered among the bushes and along the beach were pieces of Scarlet's clothing. These discoveries added to the growing mountain of evidence that undermined the police's narrative of accidental drowning. By the end of March 2008, a second autopsy and toxicological examination were conducted. The results painted a grim picture. Alcohol and several prohibited substances were found in Scarlet's blood. Moreover, her body bore over 50 violent injuries, including deep cuts and severe bruises. The minimal water found in Scarlet's lungs further refuted the drowning theory. Investigators concluded that the water likely entered her lungs post-mortem, suggesting that the perpetrators had attempted to dispose of her body in the ocean to stage the appearance of an accidental drowning. Additionally, the toxicological analysis revealed the presence of heavy prohibited substances, raising troubling questions about how such substances had entered her system. According to her friends and family, Scarlet had at most smoked occasionally, making this finding all the more suspicious. Through her tireless efforts, Fiona managed to piece together a clearer timeline of Scarlet's final hours. Conversations with witnesses helped reconstruct the events of that fateful night. After leaving her friend Ruby, Scarlet had reportedly been seen entering a bar around 3 a.m. One key witness, Mike, an English tourist also vacationing in Goa, recalled seeing Scarlet at that time. According to him, Scarlet appeared heavily intoxicated, struggling to walk and slurring her speech. She even fell near the entrance, and bystanders helped her to her feet. Scarlet's presence immediately attracted attention from numerous men, but the bar's owner tried to shield her from their advances. At some point during the evening, Scarlet was seen heading to the back of the bar where she spoke with two Indian men. Witnesses observed that Scarlet appeared familiar with these men as they laughed, drank, and talked together for about an hour. Mike, one of the patrons who had been casually watching the scene, noted that Scarlet seemed at ease in their company. However, he also couldn't ignore the unsettling changes in the area. Over the past months, the beach had gained a dark reputation, with an increase in gang activity. These incidents had cast a shadow over what was once a popular destination for tourists and locals alike. Around 4:30 a.m., Mike spotted Scarlet leaving the bar accompanied by one of the men. Initially, the sight didn't strike him as unusual. About 30 minutes later, as he prepared to leave the bar himself, Mike's attention was drawn to a disturbing scene. From a distance, he noticed the same man dragging Scarlet into the bushes. Although Scarlet did not scream or visibly resist, her limp posture unsettled Mike. He dismissed his instincts, assuming they were a couple seeking privacy. Tragically unaware of the danger Scarlet faced, Mike chose not to intervene and continued on his way. These witness accounts became critical to the investigation. Based on the testimonies, the police made a breakthrough arrest. On March 2, 2008, two suspects, 36-year-old Samson D'Souza and 47-year-old Placido Carvalho, were taken into custody. Both men were employees at the establishment where Scarlet had been last seen. They were charged with murder and later accused of attempting to destroy evidence related to the crime. The arrests offered a glimmer of hope to Fiona, Scarlet's grieving mother, and others seeking justice. However, this hope would soon be overshadowed by the slow and tortuous progress of the case. In June 2008, the case was transferred to the Central Bureau of Investigation, a move that raised expectations for a more thorough inquiry. The trial in Goa was not scheduled until March 2010, a full 2 years after Scarlet's death. During this period, law enforcement officials painstakingly worked to piece together the events leading to her murder. They interviewed 72 witnesses, gathering a wide range of accounts to reconstruct the timeline. Yet just days before the trial was set to begin, the case was unexpectedly suspended. The suspension stemmed from a lack of direct evidence linking the suspects to the crime. Much of the physical evidence, including crucial DNA, had been washed away by the relentless ocean tides, severely undermining the investigation. Despite these setbacks, the prosecutor's office remained determined. They pressed forward, identifying and questioning additional witnesses who could provide clarity. By 2013, the pool of witnesses had been narrowed to 30 key individuals whose testimonies helped refine the timeline with greater precision. Among these witnesses, Mike's account stood out as particularly critical. His first-hand observation of Scarlet being dragged into the bushes provided a crucial link in the chain of events. However, Mike's cooperation was far from expected. In April 2012, he declined to return to Goa to testify, citing serious concerns for his safety. In later interviews with the media, Mike openly admitted his fear of returning to a country where such a heinous crime had unfolded. His refusal cast a shadow over the case, complicating efforts to establish a clear narrative. Rumors soon began circulating that Mike had been threatened by local gangs. Some speculated that these threats were intended to intimidate him into silence, preventing him from testifying. There were even allegations that the Indian authorities had launched a criminal case against him for his involvement as a witness. Whether out of fear, coercion, or a combination of both, Mike's testimony was ultimately removed from the case file. This development dealt a severe blow to the prosecution. Mike, once considered a key witness, was now labeled as unreliable, his absence leaving a gaping hole in the narrative. Fiona, heartbroken and furious, did not hesitate to voice her disdain. She publicly condemned Mike, calling him a coward who had failed Scarlet on 2 crucial occasions. First, by not intervening when he saw her being dragged into the bushes, and later, by refusing to testify and bring her killers to justice. Desperate for answers, Fiona took matters into her own hands. She traveled to the UK, determined to confront Mike directly. Her goal was to record his testimony on video, which could then be presented in court as vital evidence. Despite her heartfelt pleas, Mike refused to cooperate. His continued silence left Fiona devastated and disillusioned. Meanwhile, the authorities' focus appeared to shift, raising troubling questions about their priorities. Instead of pursuing the suspects with vigor, investigators began scrutinizing Scarlet's personal life. They highlighted entries from her diary, where she expressed feelings of fatigue with life in Anjuna and a longing to return home. Detectives suggested that these entries indicated a state of depression, even going so far as to imply that Scarlet's death might have been a voluntary act. This narrative ignored critical facts, including the absence of any documented mental health struggles or suicidal tendencies. Scarlett's family and friends were outraged, dismissing these claims as baseless attempts to deflect blame. For Fiona, the suggestion that Scarlett's death was anything but a brutal crime was an insult to her daughter's memory. Due to these setbacks and countless others, the hearings were delayed for an agonizing 8 years. During this time, Fiona remained in the public eye, enduring relentless media scrutiny. As the case dragged on, hope for justice seemed tantalizingly close, yet always out of reach. On September 23, 2016, that hope was shattered. Samson and Placido, the two men arrested in connection with Scarlett's death, were acquitted due to a supposed lack of evidence. Fiona was present in court when the verdict was delivered, and she was horrified by the decision. Years of delays had culminated in the release of the accused. The defense lawyers for Samson and Placido argued that the Central Bureau of Investigation had never possessed credible evidence against their clients. They continued to claim that it was an accident, completely ignoring the confirmed medical evidence. The confirmed 50 injuries on Scarlett's body, injuries that no person could inflict upon themselves, were conveniently ignored. Additionally, the defense claimed that Scarlett had willingly taken the prohibited substances found in her system, a theory vehemently disputed by her family and friends. Fiona had waited 4 years just to recover Scarlett's body and give her a proper burial, a heartbreaking milestone that was only possible in June 2012. She had placed her faith in the legal system, hoping for a fair trial and a just outcome, but another 4 years of anguish led only to the acquittal of the suspects. When Fiona returned to the UK, she felt as though she had lost everything. She found herself under scrutiny by the courts and even the guardianship services in the UK, which criticized her actions and questioned her fitness as a mother. At one point, there was even the possibility that Fiona might lose custody of her remaining minor children. Yet, this was only one of the devastating challenges her family faced. Before the trial against Samson and Placido could begin, Fiona's eldest son, harrowing Keeling, died under tragic circumstances. Thee was found dead at a temporary accommodation facility. Fiona believed that harrowing, who had been deeply close to Scarlett, was unable to cope with the grief of her loss. For years, he had blamed himself for not accompanying the family to India, convinced that his presence might have saved his sister. The protracted failure to bring Scarlett's killers to justice only compounded his anguish. Scarlett's reputation also suffered due to damaging allegations made by Fiona's partner, Rob, who had been with the family during their trip to India. Rob's claims painted a grim picture of Scarlett's final weeks. He alleged that by the 2nd month of their stay in Anjuna, Scarlett had exhausted her funds on alcohol, leaving the group to survive on minimal food, often a single bowl of rice a day. Rob further claimed that Julio had forcibly taken Scarlett away after the group moved to another beach. He believed that the mother could have received money for the Scarlett, so she gave her to Julio and they themselves left. Fiona vehemently denied such accusations. Then, in February 2017, an unexpected turn of events reignited Fiona's battle for justice. The court's 2016 decision to acquit the accused was formally challenged, reopening the case and offering Fiona a glimmer of hope. With renewed vigor, she joined the legal fight. It was revealed that during the initial hearings, the presiding judge had failed to follow proper regulations, resulting in a deeply flawed and erroneous conclusion. This revelation prompted the reopening of the investigation, and both suspects, Samson and Placido, were placed under scrutiny once again. As the case unfolded, the Anjuna prosecutor's office began to take the theory of intentional harm seriously. Investigators considered the possibility that Samson and Placido had deliberately coerced Scarlett into consuming a dangerous cocktail of prohibited substances and alcohol. Evidence suggested that when Scarlett resisted or perhaps became incapacitated, she was subjected to further abuse. According to the prosecution, the suspects likely threw Scarlett's lifeless body onto the coastline, hoping the waves would erase their crime and make it appear as though she had drowned naturally. However, autopsy results showed that Scarlett had died before entering the water, with the cause of death attributed to a combination of an overdose and the injuries inflicted upon her. As preparations for the second hearing intensified, a new witness emerged, shedding light on Scarlett's final hours. This individual reported seeing Scarlett at around 3 a.m. on the night of her death. According to the witness, Scarlett appeared to be trying to catch a ride, possibly to return to her family. Despite her efforts, no drivers stopped to help her, leaving her with no choice but to walk to the nearby beach bar. It was there that she encountered Samson and Placido. The two men reportedly assured Scarlet that they would give her a ride home after their shifts ended at 5 a.m. Trusting their promise, Scarlet decided to wait. Investigators uncovered disturbing details during the reinvestigation. It was alleged that Samson had slipped a potent mixture of heavy substances into Scarlet's drink, rendering her defenseless. Evidence suggested that Samson was deeply involved in the supply chain of illegal substances operating on the beach, which likely provided him with both the means and motive to commit the crime. Perhaps initially, it was this connection of his that allowed him to escape justice because the authorities simply did not want to disclose what was happening at the resort. Interestingly, Placido no longer figured in this story. Only Samson remained the main villain. However, due to the friendly relationship, it was believed that he could be the instigator. During the hearings, the defendant's lawyer denied Samson's involvement in the murder and continued to insist that it was all an accident. He whitewashed his client's image in every possible way, but by that time, the police had enough testimony and evidence to consider him involved in the brutal reprisal against the teenager. The defender managed to prove that Placido Carvalho was innocent. He really talked a lot with Scarlet that night, but he left on his scooter home earlier than she was going to go with Samson. The list of charges against Placido Carvalho was reduced to incitement even before the start of the hearings, and based on the results, the man was acquitted. But a different fate awaited Samson. On July 19, 2019, the Bombay Supreme Court found Samson D'Souza guilty on 5 counts, including premeditated murder, inducing a teenager to use heavy substances, and an attempt to conceal traces of murder. Finally, the moment of truth came for Fiona. She achieved justice after almost 11 years of continuous struggle. However, the results were far from expectations. Samson D'Souza was sentenced to only 10 years in prison for a brutal murder under aggravating circumstances.